Good evening. Welcome to the regular meeting. So I can sit back a little bit further. Regular meeting of the Lewiston City Council for August 11, 2014. We'll call this meeting to order. Please stand. We'll be led in the Pledge of Allegiance by Councilor Blakey.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America
and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Thank you. Okay, next item of business is citizen comments. This is an opportunity for citizens to address the council on agenda items or other items they wish to bring to the attention of the council. Citizens are encouraged to discuss operational issues in advance with the city manager, and in consideration of others wishing to speak, please limit your remarks to 3 minutes. We do have 3 public hearings tonight and a fairly lengthy active agenda, so we'll be taking some testimony, but if there's anybody that wishes to testify, citizen comments right now, please come forward, state your name and address for the record.
Hello, my name is Mike Feeney, and I live at 631 20th Avenue in Lewiston. And I come to you today as a representative of the Library Board of Trustees. Just wanted to, first of all, say how much we appreciate your support in the last year or so for the new library that we've created downtown. I think it's having a tremendously positive effect on the city of Lewiston. I can't tell you how many comments I get from community members about what it is doing for the community and what it's doing for the downtown. I think it's been a tremendous investment on your part, and I think you're reaping great return on investment and will continue to do so into the future. I would like to ask that you continue your support for budgeting for library operations, and once again to thank you very much for everything you've done for the library in the past.
Thanks, Mike. Any other citizen comments?
What about the public hearings then? Do you comments in there?
Yes. They're public hearings. But if you have citizen comments, then if you choose to,
Public hearings?
yes, they're public hearings. Anybody else?
I'm Dixie Wolf from 533 Preston Avenue, Lewiston. And I vote no to the 4.8% increase in tax. And the state law says 3%. So if you go 4, you're breaking the law. Also, you gave $800,000 to the library because you didn't need the money. Okay, to me that means poor management. So now you're wanting $1 million extra? Have you ever heard of budgeting? You're supposed to budget that through the years. I'm retired and I live on a budget. So I know what it is. And raising the taxes that much is just not in my budget. If we do get a raise in Social Security, we have to, then they raise the medical, so we don't get a raise at all. And that's been going on for years. So I think the $1 million is just unbelievable. That's like giving all your winter clothes away, and then come next winter, my God, you haven't got anything to wear. So then you want a whole bunch of money to spend. To me, it doesn't make sense. It all boils down to poor management. People don't have the money. People hardly have money to pay the rent. Living on basic wage. So I don't know what they're going to do. Anyway, please don't raise the taxes. And I think 4.8 is breaking the law. Thank you.
Thank you, ma'am. Ma'am?
What do you say to that?
Well, it's not, but if you would like, there's a copy of the Citizen's Guide to the Budget that's sitting up, and they're available for every citizen of Lewiston. I would encourage people to get a copy and take a look.
Well, I read the paper, so I know what you want money for.
Okay, thank you. Any other citizens' comments this evening? Okay, seeing none, we'll move on to public hearings and presentations. First item up is public hearing fiscal year 2014 budget amendments. This is amending the fiscal year 2014 budget to receive unanticipated revenues received during the fiscal year, authorizing their expenditures. Mr. Bennett, you want to introduce this?
Sure, Mayor, members of the council. This is a public hearing on the current year's budget. We'll be having a hearing after this on the upcoming budget that was just referenced by the previous speaker. This is simply to talk about the current budget year that we're in now and any amendments that need to be made for it before that year can get closed out. And what it does is it shows unanticipated revenues that have come in that we didn't budget for, and how those funds were used during the year and expended. So that's basically what this is about. You've got a copy in your packet of the proposed changes for fiscal year 2014. If you have any questions about any of the specific items that are in there, our Administrative Services Director, Dan Marsh, is here, and he can address that.
Okay, thank you. Okay, we'll go ahead and open this public hearing for the fiscal year 2014 budget amendments. Do we have anybody that wishes to speak for or against receiving the proposed revenues and expenditures of same? Please come down and for or against.
Mike Lorenz, 458 Crestline Circle Drive. I guess as far as conclusion of this budget, I guess I'd just like to kind of go back over some of the things that, seem to have gotten away from us, that where I think, like this lady said, kind of mismanagement of our tax dollars. I mean, the first thing was our stormwater. We spent this money, over $1 million, even though, they were told not to because of a pending, case. Well, then we had to go rob that money from the Public Works Department, if I remember correctly. And, who knows if that ever will get paid back. Then we forgave over $200,000 in bad debt incurred by Golf Course, Inc. We borrowed $1.2 million from the sanitation fund for the golf course water system to be paid back, I believe, in 20 years. And I guess that figures out to $64,000 a year. I don't know if, these guys are paying any kind of interest or not, but I'm certainly not going to hold my breath on these guys paying this back. Then we borrow $800,000 from the sanitation fund for our lovely library downtown, and we, the taxpayers, have to pay this $800,000 back. It doesn't come out of the library budget. It comes out of my pocket. Plus, we're going to get tax interest on this $800,000 we kind of borrowed. Well, what a deal is that? I mean, yippee. It doesn't come out of the library budget. And then last year, you were real generous and gave them a budget increase of approximately $500,000. I mean, God, I'm glad we're so cash flush around here. And then I guess I read the other day the police department's having a hard time with their money, for their fuel. Maybe we need to take some money from these other deals and fund that. It seems like that would be a little more of a priority than, God, just throwing our money away. And then I think we've spent over $800,000 on a new computer system, plus who knows what the annual cost of that is, and updating and your tech support. I'm sure that doesn't come cheap. And then back to my favorite ones, we spend $14,400 for department heads for their car payments. We can't afford enough, fuel for the police department, but we can certainly, that would make us at least some kind of a dent, and, helping them. I guess that's more important to me, is having fuel for the police car than, giving department heads a car payment every year. And then as far as, this cell phone deal, I mean, there's like 139 people in the city of Lewiston, we're paying for, $60,000 a year. And I'm willing to bet you probably 95% of that is personal calls. Well, I'm sorry, I'm not going to sit there and front my money to, so they can have a cell phone. And, I heard Travis Michael Bus, oh, God, if we just did a stipend, well, people be listening. Well, I think people got better things to do than turn on their scanner and, seeing what's going on at the fire department. And then as far as this 4.8, I'm assuming since you can't raise taxes more than 3% a year, then obviously you guys are going to stab us in the back with about a 2% in foregone taxes. And then you're adding another $100,000 to the community park, and I think it will be a good deal. But I mean, just that whole thing, none of the taxpayers ever got to say yay or nay on this thing. It's just a done deal, and it is. It's just a continuation of you guys just throwing money away, and well, we'll just tax them. I mean, I don't know too many businesses that could forgive $200,000 and still be in business, but obviously the city of Lewiston can. And I guess my one last comment is to Mr. Blakey, kind of that snide remark about Doug Havens. Well, I'm kind of glad Doug does stick up, because this URA board kind of reminds me of the Lewiston School Board, just a bunch of brown nosers. They'll get along, and God forbid if somebody has a different opinion, and you label them a troublemaker or whatever. And I think you owe Havens an apology. At least he's out there with the taxpayers' interest at heart. And probably anybody needs to disappear off that board is probably Butch Alford and Mary Hasnall. Thanks a lot.
Thank you, Mike. Anybody else? Okay, keeping in mind, this is just the appropriation of additional revenues, unanticipated additional revenues in the amount of $7,357,180. I guess at this point, we will close this public hearing. And I guess I'd entertain a motion. Need a motion?
We have the ordinance coming up further on that.
Oh, that's okay. Thank you. Okay. Next public hearing, fiscal year 2014 budget. Considering the budget for the fiscal year commencing October 1, 2014 and ending September 30th, 2015 to fund city services and improvements. Mr. Bennett, you want to introduce this again?
Thank you, Mayor.
This is, if I may, real quick, this is the pertinent document we're talking about, and that's what the Citizens Guide to the Budget is, that's sitting in the back of the room.
This is our public hearing for the upcoming budget year that begins October 1 of 2014. It's approximately a $61 million budget this year. It includes all of the different sources of revenue that the city receives during the year, not just property taxes, but also other fees for service and state shared revenues like gas taxes, cigarette and liquor tax revenues. And then it also accounts for reserves that the city currently holds in all of its funds to account for its total revenue. And then it includes also, of course, the expenditure side, which is for all of the services that the city will provide during the coming fiscal year and all of the capital projects that will be constructed during the next coming fiscal year. It also includes all the costs for personnel and for general materials and services, consumables that are used by the city during the year. As far as the property tax scenario goes for the current year, the amount that was published in the budget, the maximum amount that the council could levy for the coming year is 4.8%. I think it's important to distinguish, though, that what does 4.8% mean? It means approximately $1 for each a month for each $100,000 of assessed value on a home in Lewiston. Now that's after the homeowner's exemption has been taken. So you can figure about $182,000 to $183,000 in assessed value, which is probably accounts for the majority of homes in Lewiston. They would be pay, if that was adopted, $1 a month extra on their property tax bill. If you go up to the next category, say $283,000, again, reducing that by the homeowner's exemption down to about a $200,000 level, it would be twice that, so it would be $2 a month. That probably accounts for 85% or so of the homes in Lewiston. So that's the actual fiscal impact on a residential home. Commercial businesses also, of course, are taxed for their real property as well. They do not receive the homeowner's exemption, so it's based on the full amount of the assessed value of their property. So those are the main issues this year. I know some of the issues that the council has talked about, some of the priorities for this year that have been focused on in this budget include funding for the community park and for its future development, and funding for streets. That's been a big issue this year, is to provide a stable, long-term funding solution for our street program in the city. So those have been the main focus during the budget discussions this year. That's sort of a summary of what you can expect in this budget. Any specific questions, we can certainly respond to those for the council.
I suppose we should open the public hearing first. Okay, this time we'll go ahead and open the public hearing. If there's anybody that wishes to testify on the proposed fiscal year 2014 budget, please come forward, state your name and address for the record.
Jim Kluss, 520 21st Avenue, and I appreciate City Manager Bennett's comments he just made, because that was kind of my starting point. His comments just now, and as in the paper yesterday, indicated that for $100,000 of taxable value, that would be an increase of about $1 a month for the homeowner. Well, we live in a modest home. We have an assessed value of $150,000. That brings our taxable amount down to about $75,000. And I spent part of the day, since it was so hot and smoky outside, reviewing the facts on my house. So my two most current assessments from the Nez Perce County Assessor's Office showed an increase on our house a year ago. Our city portion of the property taxes were $653. This year, our most current assessment for the city portion of our property taxes was $698. So that's an increase of about $44. That's more like $4 a month. And I know last year the same kind of narrative was presented, and it was probably even less per 100,000 then, because we weren't talking 4.8%, it was something less. So that model doesn't hold up, and these are right out of the books. These are right, right available from the county. This is what I paid. So that analogy isn't correct. So we're starting this discussion on a falsity. But in addition to what we pay in property taxes, we all pay utility fees. As far as I'm concerned, it's all taxes. I mean, they're for necessities. We need water, we need sewer, we need garbage. Don't argue that. Don't argue paying for them. But it still doesn't change the fact that I pay a grand total to the city between both property tax and utility fees. And for the past, for year to year, from last June to this June, I paid $1,427 in utilities. So in the last 12 months, we've paid the city $1,427 plus 7, about $2,100. If this bad budget is passed, it doesn't even matter if you cut the 4.8 down, which you probably will do somewhat. It makes you always look better to cut it down. Maybe you won't. I'm sure a year from now, when I rack up what I literally paid, it'll probably increase, say, $150 more, because it was about an increase of about $130 for the prior 12 months we just completed. And if you take $2,100 and you tack on another $150,000 or $150 for what you're talking about, the new budget, that's going to talk about a 7% overall increase in what's paid to the city between property taxes and utilities by just a typical homeowner. That's way beyond the inflation rate. And I think, well, what's going on? Because I don't really see additional services. We have lots of infrastructure problems. The money mostly goes for funding for wages and payroll compensations. Not much of it currently go to anywhere else from a property from the money collected from citizens, unless you get grant money, which was great, you do. So I just think people need to have a more realistic, a better reality of what's really being taken, because I guarantee you very few people are going to get away with just a literal $1 a month increase. Now, I know when this budget season started, because I remember when I was on the council, and it probably starts this way every year, but early on, city, Administrator Marsh talks about, well, as we enter budget season, we've already cut what we can in anticipation of the new year. And we had $1 million deficit, now we got down to 400,000. I'm just making these numbers up, but they're somewhere in the area of what's oftentimes talked about. So if we generate and if we raise taxes X amount, that'll bring back that 400,000. We'll wipe out the gap. And I believe Councilor Daniels at a work session kind of asked for details, specifics about, well, what is the amount you've cut? Give us a line item detail of how you say you've whittled this down in the preliminary days of the early budget season. And apparently that answer never came because he was blown off, because staff counts heads up here, and there's only 2 people that question things financially around here, and that's the Councilors Daniel and Johnson. If you had a council that was predominantly like Councilors Daniel and Johnson, 4 or 5, at least 4, then they'd probably have to come back with an answer, because you are the boss. And when you ask for information from the staff, you should get it. And you don't get it. Using Councilor Blakey's analogy of football in a huddle, it's the staff that's in the huddle. This council is off on the sidelines. You guys are all just water boys. And you're doing exactly what they tell you to do. So I wish that this council really would dig. It's easy to say you're some kind of fiscal hero and disciplinarian when you can just increase rates at whatever rate to make the budget balance. That's no big trick. Anybody can do that. It's a little tougher, though, to put some restraints upon yourselves. And it's all great to fund wonderful projects. I agree with Mike Feeney. That downtown library, I'm down there all the time when I work. It's obviously very busy, and it's a beautiful building, and I think it's terrific. And I think it's terrific that we can put money to things we ought to put money at. But just as it's apparently not too difficult, or the comment oftentimes is made, well, we're just getting a few dollars here and a few dollars there to increase. Well, if you ask for those same few dollars back in a cut, man, all of a sudden it's the biggest amount of money in the world. So some of you that are on the council that are very quiet, never talk about things, I'd like you to get a little backbone. You are supposed to be in charge here. I'm sure it's just a big laugh riot with the staff because they have nothing to fear from this council, or any council. It's not even just this council, it's all councils. Council I was on was the same way. And when people ask questions, they're the ones that get chastised in the media and by other council members who don't like to ask questions, who like to just follow and be followers and be friends with the staff. Your job's not to be their friend. I mean, it's great that you get along, but no, I think this 4.8% increase is a travesty. It's a slap in the face to the citizens, in addition to utility rates that are going up, which are all part of the equation. And I would challenge people at home to dig out their receipts. And you add up what you paid for utilities in the last 12 months, and then hopefully if you got the year part of that, add those up and see what the increases were. It's not inconsequential. Thank you for your time.
Thank you, Mr. Kloss. Anybody else wishing to testify? In favor? Opposed? Other?
May I ask a question?
Oh, hang on. Oh. You were going to ask a question of,
I was going to ask, my question was for, not a rebuttal from Dan, but to ask if the calculations, city's calculations and Mr. Kloss's calculations are accurate, inaccurate, or I help some help here. I'm asking for help, that's all.
They're right on my statements.
Yeah, I don't doubt you. I'm just asking for
I
help.
wrote a check for what I wrote a check for. There's nothing to doubt for me.
Mr. Mayor, Council, thank you. Yes, there's a comparison from year to year. We articulate that each year in our presentations, and we talk about our work sessions, and it's in the Citizens Guide. And that is, we have no control over the assessed values. So assessed values go up, they come down. And in order to compare and truly what the impact of the budget increase on a tax basis is, we don't have no way of assuming what each individual taxpayer's assessed value does from year to year. But what we do know is the net actual increase, and those are accurate. Last year it came to $1.25, I believe, per 100,000 increase. But an individual's property may go certainly up, like Mr. Kloss's, if his assessed values went up.
Our taxes were flat the 2 years I compared.
I think Mr. Kloss was referring to over and above property tax, but the utility fees and fees that has been
Sure,
being
and then
assessed.
last year we had a double-digit increase in our water fees.
My property taxes
so-
went up $4 a month, not $1, on the same assessed value. Be happy to show you.
And so I would encourage, what we probably need to analyze is what happened to the assessed value from one year to the next. But in terms,
It's the same, I said.
Mr.
My
Kloss,
case, which is what we're
if-
talking about as an example. I'll come back down.
Okay.
An argument doesn't win water, not in my case.
Not in my case either.
Okay. Do we have anybody else that wishes to testify? Okay, well, I guess at this point, we'll go ahead and close this public hearing. And we'll address it in the ordinance. Okay, next item. Public hearing, swimming pool fees. Considering an increase in rates, fees, and charges for the City of Lewiston swimming pools. I'm assuming Mr. Barker is here. Would you like to address this?
Yeah, the swimming pool fees are the only fees this year which exceed the amount by statute that requires a public hearing. It's not so much the dollar amount as the percentage amount that triggers that this year. So that's why we're having a public hearing at this meeting on the swimming pool fees. And Mr. Barker can go over exactly, what those proposals are.
Okay. Mr. Barker.
Mayor, City Council members, thank you. Like Mr. Bennett said, we've looked at reviewing all of our fees. One fee that hasn't been increased since fiscal year '05 was our swimming pool rates. You should have copies of those within your packets. I also have it up here as well to show. Those that are at home are here, and I'll walk through them as well. Like I said, we haven't had an increase in our pool rates in over 10 years. Maintenance expenses have gone up. Our rates that we pay our employees have gone up. All of our expenses have gone up, but we've tried to stay as stable as possible as far as our rates go for operating our pools. We do operate the pools at a deficit every year. It's no secret that any pool around is not a cash cow by any means, no matter what industry you're in. We have 2 seasonal aged outdoor pools built in 1942 and 69, and they're not cheap to replace parts on or keep updated when things happen to either one of them. So what we were looking at, obviously, like Mr. Bennett had stated, some of these percentages are anywhere between 10 and 33%. Well, overall, it's really not a major increase, but it's more than a 5% increase, and so that's what we're bringing to the council today. I'll just briefly go through some of these changes, and then I can answer some questions afterwards if we have some. As far as our standard rates, our daily swim rate currently is $1.50 per session, and that's per individual. Session times vary depending on which session you're going to. Our afternoon open swim time is 1 to 4:30, where our evening sessions are more closer to about an hour and a half long session. So we're looking at upgrading that from $1.50 to $2 per session for an individual. Youth swim lessons going from $20 to $25. Swim sessions, the swim lessons for both youth and adult are Monday through Friday for 2 weeks, so they get 10 25-minute sessions out of that. The adult swim lessons would be going from $40 to $50. Individual season pass is currently $50 a person, and $55 is what the new rate would be. And just to make a note, of any of our recreation programs that we offer within our department, youth individual season passes is something that we do have a scholarship program for. That's something that we're looking towards creating a larger ability to create scholarship abilities for our youth and our community for our programs in this next year. But that's the youth individual swim pass. If a child goes to their school counselor within the Lewiston School District, qualifies for free or reduced lunch, they have the ability to receive a free individual pass for the summer. Just a side note so you know. We don't plan to change that policy at all. This last year we did give away 37, which is typically on the lower end. We may give up to 75 to 100 on larger years. Family season pass is going from $100 to $110. The additional family members beyond what our standard family season pass covers, that rate won't change. It's an additional $10 per family member. And then pool party rates increasing from 0 to 30 participants, 95 to 110, 31 to 75, 130 to 150, so a $20 increase. And then a party that's 76 participants or more, going from 180 to 200. And then the little asterisk, I forgot to mention under the daily swim rates. Currently, there's free swim on Saturdays in our pools. We would continue to do a free evening swim when we have our Dive and Drive movie series. So when it's partnered with a recreation program, we'll still allow that session to be free. But what we're proposing is to charge for our regular daily swim rates Monday, or basically Sunday through Saturday now, instead of free swim on Saturdays.
Councilor Randall?
Got a question for you. We had a gentleman do a study on our swimming pools earlier, and he was explaining to us some of the repairs that are going to have to be done and stuff. And he also talked to us about our pool rates. And what was the percentage that he said that our pool rate was compared to the average in the Pacific Northwest?
You know, I meant to bring that study too. I didn't bring that with me.
But we were lower.
Yeah, we were much lower. Yeah. And talking with the consultant afterwards, he did agree that obviously changing our rates every 10 years wasn't suitable and that phasing in was a better approach at doing that. And so that's what we're looking at doing here.
Councilor Daniel.
Tim, what kind of use does the free swim Saturdays have?
You know, it's not as great of a use as what you think it might be. The majority of difference that we see in a free swim would be potentially community members that may come in and use it as a shower facility. That's one advantage to a free swim day. They don't have to pay to come in and use our facilities. It depends on weather. It's not any different than any other regular day. So we're not seeing, it's not like on a Friday at Burt Lips, we're seeing 100 participants, and then on Saturday for free swim, we're seeing 300. Our numbers really aren't varying from day to day a whole lot.
Do you have anything further? Or?
Nope.
You had some questions there, so, okay. Well, stick around. Thank you, Mr. Barker. Okay, we'll go ahead and open up this public hearing for the proposed swimming pool fee increases. Is there anybody in the audience that would like to speak in favor or against the proposal that's on the table? Again, I think it's not, it is an increase, and from a percentage standpoint, you know, it can look like a big one financially out of pocket. It's not, but because of the level of increase, we're required to have the public hearing. So if there's anybody who'd like to speak. Okay. Well, seeing none, we'll go ahead and close this public hearing. Thank you. Okay, next up on the agenda is consent agenda. I'll entertain a motion to read the consent agenda unless there's any corrections.
Mr. Mayor,
Councilor Randall.
I'd like to move item D to the active agenda.
So D will become I.
And I already let the city clerk know that there was a correction on regular minutes for June 9th on page 6.
Last paragraph. Yes. And actually, we have a couple corrections as well, Carrie, on the 728. No, that's 728?
Yeah, the 728.
728 minutes, page 3. I did not vote on the alum bid. I recused myself, and it has me voting in the affirmative. And then Councilor Johnson had some comments on page 5 under Councilor comments, and he was actually citing Caldwell City Code, not the state code. If you could make that correction. Okay, so we have a motion to read the consent agenda as amended.
So moved.
Second.
Okay, motion's been made and seconded. Any discussion? All those in favor say aye. Aye. Opposed? Motion carries.
Approving the minutes of the April 28th, 2014 regular meeting, June 9th, 2014 regular meeting, and the July 28th, 2014 work session. Approving joint resolution 2014-2 by title only. A joint resolution approving a grant of utility and access easement across Lewiston Regional Airport property from Nez Perce County and the City of Lewiston as grantors to the City of Lewiston as grantee, and further providing for an effective date. Approving resolution 2014-49 by title only. A resolution accepting an easement from Joseph P. and Tamara M. Johnson, husband and wife, to the City of Lewiston and Idaho Municipal Corporation for a public water utility with maintenance access and further providing for an effective date. Approving Resolution 2014-32 by title only. A resolution accepting an easement from Nez Perce County to the City of Lewiston and Idaho Municipal Corporation for public utilities with maintenance access and further providing for an effective date. Approving the vouchers payable for July 18th, 2014 through July 31st, 2014 in the amount of $637,189.36.
Okay, councilors, the consent agenda has been read. I'll entertain a motion to approve the consent agenda.
So moved.
Second.
Okay, we have a motion and a second. Is there any discussion? All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries 7-0. Okay, moving on to the active agenda. First item up, ordinance 4606, third reading and adoption. Implementing the council's decision in ZC 01-14, declaring that certain real property be removed from the Normal Hill North Zone and included in the local commercial zone, C1, and that the comprehensive plan be amended to redesignate that certain real property from high-density residential to commercial. I'll entertain a motion to read for the third time, ordinance 4606.
So moved. Second.
Okay, motion's been made and seconded. Is there discussion? All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed?
Nay.
Okay, motion carries 6-1.
Approving the third reading of ordinance 4606 by title only, suspending the rules. An ordinance implementing the City Council's decision in ZC 01-14, declaring that certain real property be removed from the Normal Hill North Zone and included in the local commercial zone, and that the comprehensive plan be amended to redesignate that certain real property from high-density residential to commercial, and amending the official zoning map of the City of Lewiston and providing an effective date.
Okay, councilors, ordinance 4606 has been read for the third time. I'll entertain a motion to approve ordinance 4606.
So moved. Second.
We have a motion and a second. We have discussion. Councilor Randall.
My main objection is, again, as I repeated, or I said once before, was that the reason they put the Normal Hill zone there was to protect the historic value. And I read, my concern is that the property will start extending more commercial property along 11th Avenue. And I dislike it happened with 21st Street when originally it was supposed to be a residential arterial. So that's my concern on that, and that's why I'm voting no.
Okay, thank you. Further discussion? Okay, seeing none, I'll go ahead and, I guess, all those in favor of approving ordinance 4606? Say aye.
Aye.
Opposed?
Nay.
Okay, motion carries 6-1. Next up is ordinance 4610, third reading and adoption, which is repealing City Code Section 24-3, which by, in parentheses, tossing candy at parades. And I thank Councilor Daniel for spotting this, and I think that's an American thing to do, is throw candy at parades. So I'll entertain a motion to read for the third time ordinance 4610.
So moved.
Second.
Okay, we have a motion and a second. Any discussion? Those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries 7-0.
Approving the third reading of ordinance 4610 by title only, suspending the rules. An ordinance of the City of Lewiston repealing Lewiston City Code, Section 24-3, and providing an effective date.
Okay, ordinance 4610 has been read for the third time. I'll entertain a motion to adopt ordinance 4610.
So moved.
Second.
We have a motion and a second. Is there any discussion? Seeing none, all those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries 7-0. Next up, bid reward for mowers, Western Equipment Distributors, Inc. of Spokane, Washington, in the amount of $166,925.38. Mr. Bennett, you want to introduce this? Or Mr. Barker, or Mr.
I've got some information. I'm assuming Joy's here for the same thing.
Okay.
Fred has a little more documentation than I
Mayor, council members. My name is Joy Schwenk. I'm the purchasing coordinator for the city. On April 17th, no, March 10th, you guys awarded the bid to the lowest bidder, RMT. They delivered those mowers on April 17th. Immediately started having problems. They were making weird sounds, so RMT took one back to see if they could find out what was wrong. Couldn't discover the problem. Eventually seemed to clear up on its own. However, because we still had some concerns, they extended the warranty for an extra year, which is great. Then one of them had starting problems, another one had the seat broke, and just problem after problem. With all this heat, we were having overheating problems. They could only get about an hour and a half of work out of the machine, and then it would overheat, and they'd have to wait for it to cool down, take it back to the shop. After 3 months of this, we decided that we just can't give them any more time to fix this problem. RMT was wonderful in what they could control. Our local vendor bent over backwards to try and make these machines work for us. Anything that they could fix on their own, they did. But these were design flaws, manufacturing flaws on the part of Jacobson, and they just could not be remedied. So we had them pick up their machines. We didn't pay anything for the machines because the agreement was we would get 2 weeks of problem-free work out of them before we would pay for them. We never received 2 weeks of problem-free use of those machines. This whole time we were using our trade-ins. Poor machines were intended to not have to be used, but we were using them. They kept going. Our fleet had to do some, maintenance on those to keep those going as well. So since we had to return those machines, we would like to go with the second bidder, which is Western Equipment. And they are $20,000 higher. But we did a test on the mowers, and they worked without any problem. Didn't overheat, didn't have any issues. Staff was very pleased with them. And so we would very much appreciate your approval to go ahead and award to the second bidder for that amount.
Okay. Councilors have any questions? Councilor Collins?
It's not really about the mowers themselves, but when we have a budget change like this or a rebidding, this is a little over $20,000. Exactly how do we account for that? I mean, this was back from March when it was originally awarded. Is that something that's put away, held in response? I'm assuming that we got a backup plan for spending another $20,000 on it.
This was not a rebid. This was a second bidder on the original bid.
Right, but we did spend $145,000 the first.
No, we did not. We did not pay for the mowers at all.
Okay, that answers
And we had budgeted $196,000 total for these two mowers.
That answers my question. Thank you.
Yeah, that was going to be my question. The original maximum allowed in the budget was from Fleet Services, I assume, 190 something?
Yes, Mr. Mayor, 196,000 was the original budget, and that was based on some previous purchases and estimates. So the first bidder created quite a savings, and even though we go to the second bidder at 168,000,
166.
we'll still actually have more than was actually originally budgeted. That excess will go back to fleet reserves.
Okay.
So we're still within and well under budget.
And we're not required to rebid it?
No. This is a case where we accepted the first bid, but they're unable to perform on the contract. And so we refund their bid security to them and give them back their mowers, and we just go to the next bidder.
Okay. Thanks, Troy.
Thank you.
Any other questions? Okay, well, I guess I'll entertain a motion to award the mower bid to Western Equipment Distributors in Spokane, Washington in the amount of $166,925.38, including trade-ins.
So moved. Second.
Okay, we have a motion and a second. Any discussion?
Those are expensive lawnmowers.
They are, but we cut, how much do we cut? 300 acres of lawn? 300 acres of lawn. And there's a distinction of just cutting, but 300 acres of lawn, so, thank you. But you're right. Okay, all those in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Opposed? Motion carries 7-0. Okay, next up, Resolution 2014-48, establishing the rates, fees, and charges for the City of Lewiston swimming pools. Item we previously discussed in a public hearing. I'll entertain a motion to approve resolution, to read Resolution 2014-48.
So moved.
Second.
Motion's been made and seconded. Discussion? All those in favor say aye. Aye. Opposed? Motion carries 7-0.
Approving Resolution 2014-48 by title only. A resolution establishing rates, fees, and charges for the City of Lewiston swimming pools and providing an effective date.
Okay, councilors, Resolution 2014-48 has been read. I'll entertain a motion to approve Resolution 2014-48.
So moved.
Second.
Have a motion and a second. Is there any discussion? Councilor Daniel.
I move that we reinstate the free swim Saturdays.
Second.
So that's an amendment to the motion?
Yes.
Okay. We have an amendment to the motion. We got a motion, okay, a second, so discussion.
Mr. Barker, pertaining to that, what Clinton is proposing, I thought I heard you say that on Saturdays, some of the folks who come and use our free swim aren't there to swim, they're there to shower, and that's their sole reason for coming? Did I hear you say that? And that would be our homeless or folks without showers? And that number is little, lot, many, what would you say?
Just kind of depends on the week, anywhere between 10 to 15 between the two pools.
And if we didn't have showering available on Saturday, those folks obviously would seek other sources.
Yeah, Councilor Daniel?
My intent isn't to provide them with showers. My intent is to provide this program where we allow people that, for one, maybe they've never gone to our pool, and this is an opportunity for them to take their family and go there for free and enjoy it. And who knows, maybe as a result, they end up buying a season pass. I think it's a great service, and I understand the reason for getting rid of it. I think it should stay.
And the intent of my question was, I just didn't know that existed, that we had that going on here.
I didn't either.
Councilor Millen-Mao.
Tim, have you guys ever charged for Saturday swim before? Sorry. And just pretend I didn't ask.
Someone's good. Mayor, council members, to my knowledge, we've never charged for Saturday swim. And through the history that I've looked back, and I've been able to find information back until the mid-60s as far as rates.
Okay.
Thank you.
Councilor Pro Tem Johnson.
If we're raising our rates with such a high percentage, why wouldn't we be able to provide free swim Saturdays?
Obviously, the rate increases are to gradually get us a little bit closer, not that we're ever going to break even. Right now, we bring in anywhere between about $35,000 to $40,000 in revenue, and our expenses are in the $120,000 to $130,000 ranges. So with increases, including charging for Saturdays, we're hoping that we could increase our revenues by about $10,000 to $15,000 possibly this next year.
Councilor Blakey.
Just a question on your revenues. I see that 2 years ago, the revenues were higher than your anticipated revenues for this year. I wasn't around 2 years ago to know why you budgeted less revenues this year than the prior year. Is bad weather?
Yeah, it's really weather conditions, length of the season, depends on the dates. Sometimes we're able to fit in an extra 2-week swim session, which swim sessions this summer have been extremely popular. Some years the lesson sessions aren't as popular. It just kind of comes and goes. When the Aquatic Center was built 10 years ago, obviously we saw a downturn a little bit, but we've seen that come back as well. Really, from year to year, it's tough to explain. A lot of it's weather related, though. If it's too hot, we don't necessarily see swimmers. If it's too cold, we don't see swimmers.
Okay. No, I guess I don't have a problem with the amendment. To be honest with you, I think on the big scheme of things, if you're talking maybe 15, 20 people, for a free swim, Saturday. It's not really, I don't want to say it's a drop in the bucket, but $2, $2 charge times 50, you're talking about pulling an extra $30 however many times a year, or a summer. So, but, and Counselor Johnson, I understand you, when we're talking about increases, and yeah, you look at a 25% increase, but it's going from $1.50 to $2.
But going from free to any amount's 100% increase.
Well, that's correct. That one I'll give you.
Plus, there's a lot of low-income families out there that might not be able to afford to go swimming all the time, and I feel like it's a level of service that shouldn't be cut.
Okay, no, I appreciate that, but we also discussed the fact that any child in the school district that is qualified for the reduced or free lunch program will get a scholarship. Correct?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, they apply through their counselor at their school, and then their counselor makes decisions and forwards on names to us, and we provide that. Also, we're a part of the summer reading program as well at the library, and we do give away, I want to say we gave them 750 passes this summer to give away for kids.
Okay.
One more quick question.
Sure.
On the free lunch and the swim passes and all that, I don't want to get too much in particulars, but that's any child in the Lewiston School District or any child who attends a Lewiston school living in the county, or any child in the county who's getting free lunches?
Lewiston School District.
Lewiston School
Kids
District.
that attend school in Lewiston School District. And all those names are sent on. We cleaned up the process this year. We used to get information directly to us from the schools. It now goes through the administration office. Then they've put it into a nice form that makes it nice and easy for us to get everything divvied out. They have to let us know which pool they plan to attend, and then their passes are given to that pool for them when they show up.
Okay. Yes, Councilor Collins.
Tim, with the Saturday people that are showering, that was interesting and news to me. Do you see anything with that we should be concerned about, a negative? Is that something that we're trying to detour, or is that really a non-issue?
Well, it's really not a huge issue. Just the only issue we've run into is some of the families that have been in there feel like they may not be as safe, or feel like there's some sort of threat to them or their kids. Obviously, we don't screen people when they come in. If we have issues with them, obviously we deal with that if we need to, but all in all, we typically haven't had too much of a problem with that.
Thank you. Okay. Further discussion? Okay, I'll entertain a motion to approve Resolution 2014-48 as amended.
So moved.
We need to vote on the amendment.
Oh, we need to vote on the amendment. I'm sorry. Thank you. All right. All those in favor of the amendment, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Thank you for clearing me up. Okay, motion passed 7-0. Now, all those in favor of approving Resolution 2014-48 as amended? Or I'll entertain a motion.
So moved.
To
Second.
approve as amended. Thank you. Motion's been made and seconded. Is there further discussion? All those in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries 7-0. Thank you, Mr. Barkin. Okay, next up, item E, this is Appeal 02-13. This is the reason statement, approving the reason statement for AP 02-13, the appeal of Benning and Lean.
Mr. Mayor, members of the council, it probably should say review. What I'd like to do, and I'll explain to you why we're doing this, is have you look at all the information you received and then come back to next council meeting and vote on approving your reason statement. A couple of years ago, the law changed as to what the format is for findings and fact and conclusions of law to a reason statement. When this case came up, we were kind of in the process of redoing our format and didn't have an opportunity to file what we think is the correct format of a reasoned statement prior to this going through council and prior to the petition for judicial review being filed. it's my belief that if it went to the court and the court said you have to put it in the correct format, what would happen is, and it's based on other cases, is the court would send it back and say redo the statement. I'm trying to shortcut that process and say let's do it now before the hearing on the petition for judicial review. But it needs to be, the decision on the reason statement needs to be made by the council. Need to look at it specifically and make the determination that this is in fact how you made your decision to approve that project and to approve the conditional, to deny the appeal and to approve the conditional use permit. So it's a very, it's a new format, but it is what you're going to begin to see, and it asks that we delineate disputed facts and how the council resolved those disputed facts, and you'll see that in the reason statement. We're not going to take any new evidence, so what you have in your packet is the transcript of both of the council meetings that dealt with this particular project. You have a copy of the planning and zoning's findings that you relied on when you first heard this project, and you have our proposed reason statement. So what I would like you to do is make sure that you've had enough time to go through those, check the transcript if you have any questions about what's in the reason statement, so that when we come back to the 18th council meeting, you'll be able to approve the reason statement as, in fact, the reasoning that you made when you denied the appeal in this case. So.
Okay, it seems to me that we've already had to do a couple of reason statements.
Correct, and they have been much simpler than this. So the two that we have done, there were no disputed facts, and there was nobody that really spoke in opposition to them. Okay. And so it was a lot simpler process. If you don't have disputed facts, it takes a lot less time to do them. So that's what I'd like you to do, if that's acceptable to the council. I want to make sure that when we make this decision, it's really what you based your reasoning on. And I went through we have video of the two sessions. I went through the transcripts. I looked at what was said, and I looked at the presentations that were made to the council. So I think that what you have is what actually happened at your council meetings. So if you want any of the information that was actually presented at the council meeting, we can make that available to you. We do, as I said, have video of both of those sessions that we can make available to you, but I don't want to take any new evidence. I want you simply to look at it and make sure you're making the decision based on what was presented at those two meetings.
Okay, so are you asking us to approve the reason statement or just to?
No, I want you to take some time to look at it. You get it a week in advance, but I'm not sure everybody's had a proper time to take a look at the transcript and the reason statement. So we'll put it on the 18th agenda for approval.
Okay, so what are you asking from us tonight?
I'm not asking you to do anything tonight other than to try and explain to you what the process is and what we're going through.
I mean, the only thing I've really noticed was a couple of typos and...
Okay, if there are typographical errors or anything, please let me know and I'll get it to them.
In the transcript part.
Oh, on the transcript? Yeah, that's a court clerk or court reporter that does that, but I'll let her know.
Okay, I mean, I don't know if it's pertinent or not, but, okay.
But yeah, you can, if during the week you want to look at anything that was presented at your meetings, please let me know and I can get that to you.
Okay, is everybody clear on
or
that?
If you have any questions.
Okay.
Thank you.
Thank you. Okay, moving on. Ordinance 4613. This is the first reading of Ordinance 4613, amending Ordinance 4600, the annual appropriation ordinance for the fiscal year beginning October 1st, 2013, and ending September 30th, 2014, which is appropriating additional monies that are to be received by the city in the sum of $7,357,180. I'll entertain a motion to read Ordinance 4613 for the first time.
Mr. Mayor, so move.
Second.
We have a motion and a second. Is there any discussion? Seeing none, all those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Opposed?
Approving the first reading of Ordinance 4613 by title only. An ordinance of the City of Lewiston, Idaho, amending Ordinance Number 4600, the annual appropriation ordinance for the fiscal year beginning October 1, 2013, and ending September 30th, 2014, appropriating additional monies that are to be received by the City of Lewiston, Idaho, in the sum of $7,357,180 and providing an effective date.
Okay, Councilors, ordinance 4613's been read for the first time. I'll entertain a motion to approve. Oh, no, we don't have to do that. That's right, it's first reading. Thank you, Carrie. Okay. Next item, G, ordinance 4612. It's the first reading of ordinance 4612 to be termed the annual appropriation ordinance, appropriating sums of money authorized by law and deemed necessary for all general and special municipal purposes of the city for the fiscal year commencing October 1st, 2014 and ending September 30th, 2015. I'll entertain a motion to read ordinance 4612 for the first time.
So moved.
Second.
We have a motion and a second. Discussion. Okay. Pro Tem Johnson.
I just want to say I have a major problem with us raising taxes by 4.8%. I think it's too much. I think going after foregone taxes is extreme. And I think that we're playing number games whenever we say it's only $1 per every 100,000. I think it's myopic. What if the valuations change next year and they plummet? Then every year the percentage is going to compound and the taxes are going to continue to go up. So I'm upset that council wasn't able to give direction to the city manager to at least have contingency plans examined across the board to the different department directors. I think that it's wrong to only look at increases if we don't have everything out on the table, both increases and decreases, to look at and have a fair process.
Other comments? I think it's a fair process, and this is the proposed, it's the proposed budget, and we're not going to set that number until the last reading, but I think that if we're going to start, obviously I've looked at a few things in there in the Citizens Guide that maybe we can live without. I don't think that the 4.8 is going to be the final number. Again, this is the first reading. I don't know if there's specific items that you've seen in there that perhaps you should communicate to not only us, but the city manager that where you'd like to save, and we can do it now, or?
There was an item on the last page of the Citizens Guide to the Budget, page 48. It's for the fire department. It's for an inspection SUV. It's $35,000. Is that for a brand new vehicle? Or?
Yes, it is a new vehicle.
Okay. And is that what, do we traditionally buy new vehicles for the inspection SUVs or all those fleet maintenance vehicles?
I don't know, Dan. I think we generally buy used new vehicles if they're available. But however, if there are low mileage used vehicles that are available, especially for some of our specific kind of unique equipment, that may be the only option we have available to us. Go ahead, Dave.
Yeah, Mr. Mayor, Councilor Johnson, that's a very good question. We budget for new and replacement, but in several areas within the city, we actually have the hand-me-down method, if you will. And in the case of the fire inspectors, they've used recycled police cars. In some cases, it's the third hand-me-down. Community development is another one. So perhaps we buy a new police vehicle, and based on its useful life for the police department and for its needs, speed, and where what they need it for, it's retired. However, in the mechanic's view, it still has life. So it may get transferred to the community development department for our building inspectors, or in this case, the fire inspectors. This is a new purchase. It was actually presented about 3 or 4 years ago and was tabled each year until, again, now. And partly it's due to the redesign or the retrofit needed for the additional equipment that's needed for the inspectors. One example is we now ask our inspectors to do our weed abatement or our weed enforcement control. And so Steve Greger and the team down there, they just more equipment. So in this case, it's a black and white plain SUV that's just refurbished internally to handle all those equipment pieces. So a little bit of history there.
Okay.
Okay.
Thanks. Okay.
Question?
Councilor Blakey?
During Mr. Kluss's testimony, I thought he brought up an interesting point, and I believe his calculations are probably accurate. I guess I might challenge all of us to take our own tax assessments home maybe this week and work on the numbers that we have published and see what it actually how it actually affects each of our individual situations. Not that that's going to change our decisions or alter our decisions at all, but over the next couple of weeks, we may have a better idea, because I've heard Mr. Kluss's argument before. Somebody in my own office did some calculations and told me our numbers were off. And so I think it'd be probably good mental exercise that we all go home and calculate it and just see how it affects each one of us individually, and necessarily don't have to report back as a group, but we may talk about it in some setting.
Further discussion? Councilor Daniel.
Is the new public information officer position included in this budget?
At this time, it is. But again, it's one of the items that was listed on the budget options that were available for the council to consider depending upon the level of property tax increase that might be approved by the council.
As is the assistant attorney?
As is the deputy assistant attorney.
Deputy assistant attorney, okay. Mr. Marsh?
Mr. Mayor and Council, I too wanted to follow up on Mr. Kluss's point, and Councilor Blakey's as well. I'm not sure that I just wanted to expound on that a bit. The council and the city really has control over one item when it comes to calculating a tax levy, and then as to what you actually owe to pay the county, which then gets dispersed. And that's what you request. We have what's called a base budget, and you're limited by the state code of 3%. This budget only contemplates a 3% increase to our citizens. The other 1.8% is utilization of the foregone taxes. And I want to come back to that because this is a transition year with the state legislature approving a personal property tax exemption, and therefore they're replacing those monies. But let me set that one aside. Back to Mr. Kluss's point. If you'll turn to page 29 in the Citizens Guide, there's a 6-year summary of the tax levies. And in the top half of the page, you'll see where the allocation that council and staff has allocated which tax dollars to which funds, from the general fund to the library to police retirement, et cetera. For the Citizens Home, we have 7 funds, and those are like separate businesses, if you will, or separate entities within the city that receive tax monies. Now, we probably have 20 to 25 different separate funds, but others have other sources of revenues. So those are the 7 funds that receive funds. And when I mentioned that, that's really the piece that we have control over. What we don't have control over is items that are related to the property values, the assessed values that are performed by the county, and also the residents themselves. If you remodel or you expand, improve your basement or do an add-on, those are items that we don't have obviously control for those. And the other big one is the homeowner's exemption. That's established by the state. So that homeowner's exemption, which used to be about $50,000 and it doubled to $100,000, say 3 or 4 years ago, and back to $81,000. This year it's $83,920. The point being is it's a big variable, and it's an estimate that we don't have control over. All of those serve to impact what the ultimate amount of value that a taxpayer has to pay. So with all those estimates and all those moving parts, in many years of doing this as a group and many councils before you, we felt that it's best to stick with that same $100,000 value, because there you can compare apples to apples. So when you do that, back to the page where it says total taxes levied, those are the true dollars that the city has asked for. The next line is the market value, and you can see wide swings anywhere from $20 to $80 million. That impacts the rate. So there's been years when we've had no tax increase or very little increase, but because the market value dipped so significantly, the rate still went up. But then maybe it was offset because your value went down, or maybe you did complete the basement, and so now your assessed value is increased. But if you'll focus in on where we went from FY13 to 14, on $1,000, it went. The rates went from $9.61 per thousand. So if it's 100,000, it's $961 to $9.62 last year, or $962 per 100,000. So a $1 increase was last year's impact, and Mr. Anderson has substantiated that. That's just is the number. Now, if, again, the homeowner's exemption changed, your assessed value changed, all of those things would impact it. So the net is we were just a little over $1 per year last year. I mean, so pennies per month. This year, the proposal would be $12 per year or $1 per month.
Well, and that's what I'm trying to remember is because I know 2 years ago, the homeowner's exemption, because, I agree with Mr. Kluss that I think from 12 to 13, they actually decreased the homeowner's exemption.
Yes.
So, like Jim was saying, the assessed value was the same, but he was actually paying 40, what was his number, 45 bucks for the year. So, and that may be the case, I don't know. And I'm going along with Councilor Blakey, I haven't really thought about it in those lines, but I will be, because we have a file on all our stuff too, so I'll be taking a look at that.
Further comment?
Yes.
I'm not proposing new work for anybody here, but just an idea that we put on the table, and maybe someday we look at this. As a government, we use CPI. So we use a basket of stuff that we look at every month, and we come up with inflation based on this basket of prices. And some government worker gets paid a lot of money to go to a bunch of markets and buy the same stuff and then compare the prices along with other items that are in the baskets. Our increase is based on practicality, but also theory. And we say $1 per household, $1 per 100,000, or $12 on a $100,000 increase on a $100,000. But the reality is, no two people are actually going to pay the same dollar amount in this room based on the information you're saying. It's all going to be different. There are probably situations where it's actually less than the dollar, and obviously many more that are much more based on value. It would be interesting as maybe one of these practicality tools to have a basket of houses, 5 in this price range, 5 in this price range, 5 in this price range, and 5 in this price range, or something like that. And use that as a steady index that we track every year as we go forward with as city councils go forward with this practice. And now we can actually give an average, because in my business, if I say one of our managed accounts is up 8% for the year, we don't look at one account. We have to, from an audit standpoint, we have to look at a bundle of accounts. There may be 200 or 300 audited returns in there, and then out of that, we come up with an average, and that's what we tell customers. We just don't look at one. And maybe that's something that we can think about going forward, is having a basket of homes that's our own personal index, that we can then say, based our index, this is the number. And just as a measurement tool, it may not be worthy, it may not be academically important, but it might provide some additional information to the public.
Thank you. Some of the other things I'm trusting everybody has had a chance to read the document that we got, and I think some of the key items you can find on the capital improvement program and stuff. And there's some spots that I had some questions about. Apparently Pioneer Park needs, the band shell needs a little bit of an update. But I see that we're kind of obligating ourselves to another $250 for the second floor remodel of the library. And I'm looking at it from the standpoint that down the years past, we've kind of beat Tim's budget up a little bit by withdrawing funds or withholding funds from Community Park, and we've just done a big remodel at the library. Maybe this is the appropriate time to not put the money into the second floor at this time, but postpone it for a little bit and worry about the city park, which I know we're going to have a work session on September 15th. But so I guess these are kind of the ideas that we're talking about right now, that we can maybe whittle that 4.8 number down. Councilor Randall.
I agree with you, Mr. Mayor, that I think the library's received enough money from the taxpayers for the last 2 or 3 years, and particularly in the capital expenditure area. And then last year, or for the last fiscal year, we had a 30% increase in the budget for the library, and that was for a technician and supervisory position. And so I think it's time we take that money and put it into something else. And I wasn't even thinking about community park, but I was thinking about roads. But maybe we could split the difference or something like that.
And I think that we're not going to come to the final number this evening. I don't think anybody anticipated that. We still have a couple more readings of this, but these are the kind of things that I think people at this table need to start thinking about. What are we looking for the future, and what's reasonable, and hopefully we can come to an agreement on the 28th, 25th. Thank you. Didn't have my calendar going in my brain. So, any further discussion? Councilor Blakey.
Question for the acting fire chief. The recommendations in this budget were presented to us based on the former fire chief, and as acting fire chief, would you still be supportive of all the recommendations?
Yes, sir.
Okay.
Okay. Further discussion? Okay. Well, the motion and the second is to read ordinance 4612 for the first reading. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed?
Nay.
Okay, motion carries 5-2. Need a show of hands? Okay.
Approving the first reading of ordinance 4612 by title only. An ordinance to be termed the annual appropriation ordinance, appropriating sums of money authorized by law and deemed necessary for all general and special municipal purposes of the city of Lewiston, Idaho, for the fiscal year commencing October 1, 2014, and ending September 30th, 2015, providing for the filing of a copy of this ordinance with the Secretary of State as required by law, and providing an effective date.
Okay, thank you, Carrie. Okay, next up is ordinance 4611 for the first reading. Fixing and establishing the tax certification on all taxable properties situated within the corporate limits of the city for the fiscal year commencing October 1, 2014, ending September 30, 2015, for the purpose of providing and raising monies for municipal and corporate purposes, providing for the tax certification to the Nez Perce County Commissioners in the amount of $17,110,930. I'll entertain a motion to read for the first time ordinance 4611.
So moved.
Second.
We have a motion and a second. Discussion. Okay, I guess I'll lead it off. This is, obviously, that number is based on the 4.8, which consists of 3%, and then 1.8. Getting back to Mr. Marsh's comment, which I don't think he quite finished up, but the 1.8% of foregone taxes, that really is money that the city is required to apply, correct me if I'm wrong, in order to get the personal property tax exemption funding back from the state. Is that correct?
Partially, Mr. Mayor. Like we mentioned last year, this is a transition year because of the personal property, and that is an exemption that relieved our local taxpayers. The state is going to fulfill that and provide that money from the state general fund coffers. So that money is going to come to the city regardless. I mean, I guess we could refuse it. So if we took that and some percentage less than 3%, so if collectively it was 3, we would not dip into foregone. But if we ultimately decide to not only accept the $290,000, which comes directly from the state, not from our taxpayers, and take the full 3%, then the way the math works is that, in essence, Mr. Mayor, that's where you're correct, then that's where that state replacement money comes out of the foregone.
Okay.
So that's why, again, it was 3% to our taxpayers, but the math works out at 4.8. The state replacement money ultimately ends up reducing our foregone, which, by the way, our foregone currently is $2.2 million.
Okay.
Mr. Mayor, sorry, question on that. So just to clarify, in order to take, if we want to take the property reimbursement amount, we don't have to take foregone taxes in order to get that money. That just counts towards our 3%. Is that correct?
That's right. Okay. Yeah, that's a good way to put it.
Well, okay, and correct me if I'm wrong, I thought there was because we have a pool of foregone, that we were eligible to take it, whereas the county doesn't have any foregone taxes, they weren't going to be eligible for the personal property tax reimbursement, or is that not correct?
That's correct. The issue becomes if we want to take a full 3% and accept the state disbursement, you can do that.
Gotcha.
But that piece comes out of your foregone. We could not dip into our foregone. Let's say the state portion was 1.5%, and we raised taxes 1.5%. So collectively, they were right at 3%, then we would not be touching foregone. So, Councilor Johnson's correct statement.
Okay. Yes.
Just to clarify, so essentially, we could take that reimbursement and not raise taxes at all, and we would still get the property tax reimbursement money.
Yes.
Okay.
In the amount of?
$290,000.
$290,000. Okay. Other comments?
Mr. Mayor, it's actually like 303,000. 290 is this most recent piece, the personal property tax. We've had replacement money come for years, and an ag exemption, just some real, minor amounts that add up to another 13,000. So collectively, just not mislead anybody, it's 303. 290,000 is the most recent legislation.
Personal, okay. Councilor Blanky.
Just, Councilman Johnson, just clarification, when you say not raise taxes, you're talking about not the 1.8 and not the 3%. You're talking about a zero. When you say not raise, you want to take them back to a zero increase. Is that what you mean?
I was asking the question, if we were to not raise taxes at all and just keep it at 0%, we would still get $303,000 from the state.
Okay, that's just clarification.
Okay. Everybody clear on that? Okay. Any further discussion? Okay. Then motion's been made and seconded. All those in favor of reading ordinance 4611 for the first time, say aye. Aye. Opposed?
Nay.
Motion carries 5-2.
Approving the first reading of ordinance 4611 by title only. An ordinance fixing and establishing the tax certification on all taxable properties situate within the corporate limits of the city of Lewiston for the fiscal year commencing October 1, 2014 and ending September 30th, 2015 for the purpose of providing and raising monies for municipal and corporate purposes, providing for the tax certification to the Board of County Commissioners of Nez Perce County, Idaho in the dollar amount of $17,110,930. Providing a certified copy of the annual appropriation ordinance to the Board of County Commissioners of Nez Perce County, Idaho, and adopted by the City of Lewiston for the 2014-2015 fiscal year and providing an effective date.
Okay, thank you, Carrie. Okay, next up is item I, which is formerly consent D. Approving the preliminary plat, the Estates of Canyon Crest Stage 2, to be potentially approving 121 new residential lots to be developed in phases over the next few years. And we'll have a reasoned statement on August 18th, or is that not correct?
No, that's incorrect. The reason statement will be adopted by the Planning and Zoning Commission because they had that public hearing. So you just review this plat the same way you've always reviewed plats.
Okay.
Take a look at the paperwork, determine whether or not you want to review the want to approve the preliminary plat.
Okay. Well, then I'll accept a motion to approve the preliminary plat for the Estates of Canyon Crest Stage 2.
So moved.
Second.
Have a motion and a second. Is there discussion?
Mr. Mayor.
Councilor Randall.
The question I had is why aren't we reviewing the season or reason statement prior to voting on the preliminary plat? The reason statement gives us the idea of why the P&Z decided to present it to the council, and it also gives documentation on whether it's okay on the comprehensive plan and the ordinances and all the extra paperwork. And we should be having the reason statement considered by us prior to okaying the plat.
Jamie?
Mr. Mayor, members of the council, this is not an appeal from Planning and Zoning Commission. This is a plat, subdivision plat. And recently, the state law changed to provide that we had to have a public hearing on a preliminary plat if it met the subdivision definition. So that public hearing is held at the Planning and Zoning Commission level. Because this is not an appeal to you, it simply gets transferred on to you to consider as a plat approval. If you were to consider the reason statement, you would have to have all of the information that was considered by planning and zoning. For instance, if we hold 2 public hearings sometimes on planning and zoning issues, then you're given the opportunity to listen to all of that evidence. What you have before you is what the Planning and Zoning Commission considered when it made its decision. So right now, what we're doing is having the Planning and Zoning Commission adopt the reason statement because that's where the public hearing was held, and have you look at the information that was presented and determine whether or not you want to approve the plat. And there will be some changes to how we do subdivisions. It won't affect subdivisions of this size, but it will affect some smaller subdivisions. So, but the normal process that we've always gone through is simply you get the plat information and you approve it.
So we're basically just approving this preliminary plat.
Yes.
And the vote we took a couple weeks ago where we reconsidered the vacation of Warner and all that has already been figured into this.
Correct.
The only thing that I can see that's missing from this is...
And I don't think when it came before the Planning and Zoning
access.
Commission that had been done, but
Yeah.
that was a condition of Planning and Zoning, that it was conditioned upon the vacation of Warner, and that's
Warner.
already been done.
And then, but Mr. Moore and Rogers and Green have worked out that access down to Mr.
Correct.
Moore's property. On the, remember, we got all that. So as long as everybody's clear on what we're voting on here.
That's correct. The vacation of Warner's happened. I mean, you
Yeah.
took care of that already, so it'll become a part of this plan.
Okay, yes.
I guess along the lines of Councilor Randall, I guess I'm a little confused. On the action proposed, it says that staff recommends the conditional approval of the Estates at Canyon Crest Stage 2 preliminary plat by the adoption of the reason statement of the Lewiston Planning and Zoning Commission with the conditions stated therein. I think that's the point that you were trying to make, is it's based on...
And I understand that's what you have before you, but they didn't run that by me before they filed it with the city council.
Okay, so this action is what you're saying, not what the staff report on here is mentioned. Okay.
Okay. So we clear on that? Okay. Okay, all those since we had a motion and a second, all those in favor of approving the Estates of Canyon Crest Stage 2 preliminary plat, say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Opposed?
Nay.
Okay, motion carries 6-1. Okay, that concludes our active agenda. On to unfinished and new business. City councilor comments? Do we have any this evening? Councilors? Councilor Collins?
I'm not quite as eloquent as the other counselors here, and in an effort to not put my foot too far into my mouth, I have a written statement that I'd like to make just to get a few things off of my chest and to just to put it out there what some of my thoughts are. Dear Mr. Mayor, Mayor Pro Tem, Council, and City staff, as this comment was prepared ahead of time, some of what may be said may be moot, but I would like to say it anyway. Over the course of the past couple months, the city has been working towards potential changes in cell phones, technology, and other aspects associated with doing electronic business and communication within the city. During that process, a lot of the discussion was oriented towards a local company that has been doing a substantial amount of business with the city and might be dramatically affected by some of these potential changes. Because it is a local business and some things that were said at council meetings or work sessions, it was quite obvious that the topic and substance was of great value to the public as well as the city. This was evidenced by lengthy citizen comments at multiple meetings on the topic, comments both in support of the local company as well as other potential options. At a recent work session, it was stated that we need to, quote, take the emotion out of the equation. I would tend to agree that in most situations where business or other objective information is the primary basis behind the decision, then yes, I agree. We need to take the emotion out of it. However, I would not view this situation the same. First, we have a local company which employs a significant number of our local citizens with families, and further has been an active supporter of multiple community events and activities. So I think it is obvious that any decisions that might adversely affect this business might become emotional to a lot of people for a lot of different reasons. Secondly, in my opinion, this company was on the receiving end of a lot of negative criticism. Using a quote from another counselor, they were raked over the coals. Whether the criticism was accurate or not, to have done so publicly is only going to raise the level of emotion in everyone involved, especially those supportive of this company. It was also said that there wouldn't be much discussion if this were about buying a new fire truck. I would agree with that statement up to a point. I believe that we would see a similar amount of feedback if we were to normally buy our fire trucks produced by a factory here in Lewiston and then decided to take our business to a factory located in Chicago. Regardless of whether it made good financial sense to the city to go elsewhere, a city's decision would be directly affecting a local business, their employees, and subsequent families. Finally, another comment at last week's meeting was about ATK and some possible changes that would affect them. The quote, to paraphrase, was ATK is a special entity in this community, and maybe it would be a good idea to go out of our way and give them some special care and approach them again. I wholeheartedly agree with this statement that ATK is special in our community. However, I would apply this statement to all the businesses in our community. Yes, ATK is a major cornerstone in our community. Not only do they have a lot of jobs associated with their business that directly and indirectly are associated with the Lewiston community, but they're actively involved with and supportive of many community events. They are great members of our community. These same adjectives can be applied to many other businesses in our community. In my opinion, we should be treating all of our local businesses with special care. It doesn't matter if it's a small business like M&M Market downtown with only a couple employees, businesses that have been here a long time, like the Diamond Shop or Bob's Garage Door, the major employers that have over 1,700 employees, like ATK, or the businesses in between, like Inland Cellular, with just over 50 employees. They all should be treated with special care. If we don't, not only is it not right, but we take some sizable risks. The risks I'm talking about if these businesses decide it is easier or better to locate their business elsewhere. Additionally, I would think that any current business looking to expand is paying attention to how they are treated, and any possible new business looking to potentially locate in Lewiston is going to be watching as well. I hopefully did not offend anybody with my statements, but I appreciate the time to speak to them.
Well, thank you very much. Any other comments this evening? I've just got a brief one. Yes, we've made it through public hearings and the first readings. I do want to remind everybody that we have 2 more readings for the budget, and the final reading, obviously, on the 25th, where I hope that we have had enough time to come to an agreement on something that makes sense not only for the citizens, but for the city, the business of running the city, and something that is palatable to all of us. So like I said, sharpen your pencils. We've got a couple weeks to take another couple whacks at it, and this is a proposal right now. So, and I do appreciate everybody coming, watching, testifying. Kind of a light turnout for what I thought was going to be a little more lengthy, but I do appreciate everybody's comments. So, thank you. Mr. Bennett, you have anything for us this evening?
Just one item, Mayor, members of the council. We have been working over this summer on the new sewer line that's being constructed for Community Park. That has now been completed. The line's been pressure tested, the access road's been completed. The final walkthrough is tomorrow morning at 8 o'clock. So that part of the infrastructure to serve the new Community Park property is now completed. So now we have water, we have sewer, we have sidewalks, we have a partial street construction on 11th. We have some more road work that still needs to be done to provide a full level of access into the site so that we can look at the future development of the park. But this is a very good start, and I think that'll be something that we can build on when we have our work session in September to talk about how we move this project forward.
Okay. Thank you, sir. Advisory Board and Commission appointments. I know we had a request for a reappointment, but we just received that today. Maybe we can, everybody read Carrie's email. The application came with it, was from Jackie Height for the Historic Preservation Council. Who's Mr. Collins? Okay, so give us a chance to read that, and if you're prepared to make a recommendation, next meeting we'll go ahead and do that. Anything else? We do have an opening on our Transportation Advisory Council now, since Mr. Fry has resigned to become part of the Disabilities Advisory Commission. And I think we're still looking for a couple people on
Solid Waste
Advisory Commission. So if anybody's interested, please contact Carrie. Future work session and agenda topics. Do we have any? Since we won't have one on September 1st, I guess that next, the official one, I guess we'll be using September's 15th to be discussing Community Park, and if there's anything else that's pressing, we could probably add it to that. So, okay, anything else, councilors? All right, we'll call this meeting adjourned. Thank you, everybody.